In today's tutorial, we're learning 3 ways to use the parallax effect in PowerPoint to make your presentations shine. We have a beginner level, intermediate, and advanced. Let's start with the first one, which is the beginner level of parallax. And here you can see the fore and background move at different speeds. So we have a nice image, and then as soon as you click, you get a cool overlay of the slide. And to make this effect, we start from a nice image, and for that we go to Unsplash. Let's look for a mountain image, and if you want to narrow down the search, you can also look for the orientation, for example, landscape, and that will filter out a lot of images that you need. Let's see if we can find one that we like, and on first glance, I think this one will do quite well for our presentation. So we're going to download it, and now we go back into PowerPoint, and here we're going to drag it on the slide, and then we can use a full fill. This designer tab, you can toggle it on and off in the home tab, and it's quite convenient if you want to automatically fill the image to the correct size. Let's crop, see if we position it right. This looks about good. So we have some nice air, and then we have the mountains as well. Now the main part of this first parallax effect is going to happen in the second slide. So we're going to create a new slide. We're going to delete the content, and we will add a rectangle on top of the entire slide. Let's change the outlines to no outline, and then give this a yellow color, something that contrasts nicely with the other image. Let's add a text box on the screen, and then use a quote. This could be any quote that you like. I'm going to use thinking about design is hard, but not thinking about it can be disastrous. And this is a quote that I kind of like, and it's from Ralph Kaplan. So let's also change that name here and do Ralph Kaplan. And now we're going to do some layouts so that the text looks nice. Center it in the middle for both. And the top one, we're going to make it Avenir Next. And the sub font, let's make it bold. Increase the font size, quite large. Oh, that already looks nice. It's kind of a triangle effect that we create here. The black is a bit too harsh in my opinion, so I'm going to go for a dark tint of gray. That way it's easier on the eye. And then the name of the author, let's do Avenir Next, but we're going to make it a light. So go for the subfont, ultralight version, and then also give it the same color. Position it downwards a little bit, and maybe let's add one extra element just to top it all off. Go to icons, and then here we're going to look for a quote design, and let's go for a single quote. Change the graphics fill to that same gray, and then drag it on top of the slide. Select all objects, align to center. Let's group them together and align to center of the slide. That way everything is neatly in the middle. You can ungroup again if you want. What we now want to do is we want to select everything that we have created. Let's close this for now. Copy it. Go to the first slide, paste it, and then hold Shift and drag everything downwards until it meets the bottom of the slide. We're going to add that little extra, and we're going to drag the content down a little bit more, because the parallax effect that happens when all the objects fly in at different speeds on the slide. From the first slide, we copy the background image, and we're going to paste that on the second slide. Send it to the back so everything's in the same layer order, and then drag it up slightly. Not entirely, so that everything moves at different speeds. Important to know for the parallax or the morph effect to work is that the layer orders and the grouped items are in the exact same order. If we were to group these items and then we don't do it on the other slide, it will not work. The morph will not work. And now we have to go to transition and apply the morph transition to the second slide. And now let's preview what we have. So this is your opening slide, and as soon as you click, you will get the movement of the second slide coming into place and the first slide moving at a different speed. Moving on to number 2, this is the more intermediate effect of a parallax in your presentation. And this one is a little bit more complex, with the image continuing across multiple slides and content flying in on the different slides at different speeds. And we're going to create a new slide, remove all of the content, and let's drag in the image. There we go. We're going to use the designer tab to fill it entirely. Close it for now. Right click crop, or if you're working on a Mac, you can use Shift C shortcut. And let's drag it up so we have only the top of the mountain visible for our starting point. Now let's add a text box, make it quite large, and let's give this a title Zermatt. That's the location. Make it white. Font, we're also going to use Avenir Next, and a bold subfont. Font type, let's try 150. That's about right. Center it in the middle, and then also position it in the middle of your slide. You can always add some shadows to the text, so go to Shape Format, Text Option, Shadows, and then add a small drop shadow to create some distance between the lettering and the background image. Now if you want to add some subtitles in a creative way, we could add a small text box here. I think it will fit nicely on the slide. And let's say, for example, it's Switzerland. And our font, we want to make it highly contrasting with the main title. So let's go for Sign Painter, make it white, and then increase it until it kind of fills this box on the right side of that mountaintop. Right click Format Shape, and here we're also going to add the shadows to the text. You can play around with the blur size, transparency, until you are happy with the result. I think this looks quite balanced and nice on the slide. Now we want to duplicate this slide. The content, we want to select them both, so you can either drag across the selection or click on the title, hold Shift, and click on the subtitle to select them both. Let's scroll out a little bit, and you can do that holding the Control key and scrolling backwards, and then hold Shift to drag them upwards in a straight line. I'm going to position them slightly apart from each other to get that illusion that they fly out at different speeds. The main image in the background we also want to move, so right click crop or use that shortcut, and then drag up the mountain just until it meets about the top of the slide. Oops, I've noticed I'm working on the first version. Of course, we have to work on the second, or we have to change the order, so this is the second slide. Now let's create another text box here, and let's call this Mountains. Font, same story, Avenir Next, make it white, go for the bold, increase the font size, let's try 55, I think we can even go to 75 in this case. Center it in the middle, and we're also going to give it some shadow, drop shadow, to make it stand out, easier to read. Maybe go for 88, that will be better. And the last text box where we have some dummy text to fill up on the slide. And let's fill that in. Now this becomes hard to read, especially with the background, and if we want to solve that, we can do a few things. So let's right click Format Picture on the background image, go to the Image Picture tab, Picture Corrections, and here we can reduce the brightness of the picture. And you can see that it turns the entire image quite a lot darker, so the text becomes more readable, and this will also be quite cool if we add the morph transition later. I'm going to center this text, maybe remove that last word, so we have two nice lines. And of course, this text, these two items, we want to move them to the previous slide, drag them outside of the screen. Same thing here, give them more spacing. And now we have already two slides. Let's now go for a third one. So duplicate this slide again. You can right click duplicate or use the shortcut Ctrl D or Shift Command D on a Mac. On the last slide, we want to remove the original title that we don't need anymore. The mountains and the text we shift upwards. The image we're also going to crop and shift it down just a little bit more. And here we want to add some content to the slide. For that, I'm going to copy some text. So these are two text boxes, one with a Avenir Next in demi-bold. That's going to be the title, font size 18, and then some dummy text in light using font size 14. I'm going to position it on the right side here and create a duplicate and drag it to the bottom left. Let's give this a little bit more spacing. There we go. Now to fill up the slide, we can add some icons. Let's go for icons and let's see what we can find in the nature tab. This hiking trail seems to be suitable for the image. And then maybe some person walking, mountaineering, that looks quite good. change the font or the color to white. Let's increase the size a little bit, and we can position them on top of the text boxes that we have created. Give them about the same spacing, and this looks quite cool. Now, as a last touch, we have to copy this to the previous slide and then drag it downwards. I'm also going to give this some extra spacing so that everything flies in nicely at a different speed. Final touch is we have to add the morph transition or apply the morph transition to the last slides. So for that we go to morph, and now let's preview what we have. So this is a pretty cool opening slide of Zermatt, Switzerland. Now if we click, we can see that the text moves at a different speed and the background image shifts slightly slower, and then also the new content comes in. Let's click again and we see the same effect. We scroll down the page and the content flies in at a different pace. And this is a really cool intermediate effect, I would say, for the Parallax in PowerPoint. And finally, let's look at the most advanced way to use Parallax in your presentation. This really takes your PowerPoint presentations to a totally different level. And in this example, we add the extra complexity of layers where content moves from behind, and you can even shift to full screen slides and even go back again to the opening slide with different content, so you can navigate in cool ways. And for that, we're starting yet again in Unsplash because we want some high quality images. Let's go back for mountains, but a landscape in this case. And I'm looking for a specific mountain with a dark tint, and you'll see why in a minute. So we can use this one. This is pretty nice, but I kind of like this image here, which has this clean cut border on the mountain. So let's download it in a large size and jump back into PowerPoint. And let's create a new slide, always starting from a blank slide. Let's close these for now. And let's add the image to the page. We're going to reuse some of the elements from the previous slide. Of course, you can modify it to your own branding. That is perfectly possible. This is another mountain, so let's do something generic, explore. And we could change this into presentation. Could be your title, subtitle. That is totally up to you to customize. And I'm going to position it right here so that it fills this gap and gives for a quite nice balanced effect on the slide. Next, we want to add an extra layer to this page. And for that, we're going to use this shape, document shape. It has a rounded or a rectangular top and then this curvy bottom. Let's drag that one from the left side of the slide all the way to the right. And we're going to rotate this 180 degrees. You can hold Shift to rotate in fixed increments. If you don't hold Shift, it will be more difficult to find that exact 180 spot. We're going to position this at the bottom of the slide, remove the outline, and we want to get that color tone of this darkest part here. So we're going to more fill colors, grab our color selection tool and select that dark part. Press OK, and this way we have kind of a hill that we are recreating at the bottom of the slide. And you'll see why in a minute. If you want a different form, you can always go to Shape Format, Edit Points, and then you can add some more points here if you want some extra curves on the page. That is all possible. So this way we kind of recreate a mountainside or a hilly environment for that presentation. There we go. Now we're going to back into Google and we're going to look for a pine tree silhouette image with a transparent background. Let's go to the Images tab, and here we want to get the nice silhouette of a pine tree. So you can see there's quite a lot available. Depending on the project, you can find some free ones or you can find some paid ones if you're working for a client. I kind of like this one, so I'm going to copy this one and use it in PowerPoint. And here we can paste it on the slide. That's quite big, so let's reduce it a little bit. And there we can see that if we create some copies, you can hold the Control key to create some copies. You can spread it around on the hill that we have created. There we go. Let's put a few here and there. You can also reduce these sizes so they don't all look the same size. And let's place a few next to one another to get a pretty realistic effect. This one can be larger, other ones can be smaller. It really depends. It's a personal preference here. So you can play around with it until you are happy and satisfied with the result. I think this is starting to look quite realistic already. Let's do maybe 1 or 2 more. There we go. That looks quite cool. It gives an extra dynamic layer to that slide, which we can start to animate. Now, as a next step, we want to add a rectangle below this part. And let's make it quite large so it can in the end cover the entire slide. So about this, it's better to add a little bit of extra. Remove the outline, and then the shape, we're going to give it that same dark shape color. And then make sure that it matches. We're going to grab these elements, group them together, right click group if you want, and then also add that box at the bottom to that grouped selection. So this way we have created a nice dark looking overlay on the image, but it still matches the original look and feel of that image. That's why we were looking for that dark bottom or dark type of image. Now let's move to the next slide. So we're going to duplicate the slide, title and subtitle, hold shift and drag them upwards. Give them some extra spacing. The background image itself, we're going to increase the zoom just a little bit. It will give a nice zoom effect on the image, and then also position it slightly upward so that there's some movement in the background. The silhouette that we have created, we're also going to move it, and we're going to move it higher than the previous one. So here we can see the tops of the trees. They're touching the mountain range, and in the previous one they weren't. So they're going to all shift at different speeds. Next, we want to add some content, and I'm going to copy a few paragraphs from the previous slide. Position them here. I'm going to reduce the text by just a little bit. Here we go. And then drag it to the right as well to create a copy. And the icons, I think it looked quite nice, so I'm going to select the icons as well and then position them on the slide. One in front and the other one in front of the other. Now we're kind of pushing the border here, so let's pull that in just a little bit. I'm doing the same here. This is just about the position. If you want to notice where you are located on the slide, you can always move this to the side and then see that you're not crossing the border. Or you can increase this part here, scroll down and see what the end result looks like. This looks quite clean. Now let's add a subtitle. So I'm going to copy this as well and paste it here on the slide. Move this just a bit closer. There we go. It looks quite good. It doesn't feel like they're centered, so let's align to center. That's better. There. Yes, that looks good. Now we want to do a little bit of a trick. So this title and subtitle, we want to move it in between the mountain range layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the content and the silhouette, and we're going to bring that to the front. This way, if we select the mountain text and subtitle, it will disappear from, or it will come from behind that silhouette. This of course means we have to make sure our layer orders are correct everywhere. So let's copy our content that we have here, our text boxes, Ctrl C, and paste it on the first slide, Ctrl V. And of course, we're going to drag it downwards. The mountains, now they're in a different position. So we're going to select the content and the silhouette and bring that to the front. That way we have the mountains and title also in between that layer, and that's what we want to do. If you want to arrange the orders, you can also use the selection pane and give it names here. If you're starting to make the entire thing too complex, you can give it different names, and that way it's easy to check the order. But in our case, it's still doable. Let's go for the next slide. So we're going to right click, duplicate the slide, and then see what we don't need on this slide anymore. So the title, that's all from the 2 slides ago, so we don't need that anymore. The mountains, that can fly out. The content here, we can move it to the sides because we want to fly that, or we want to make sure that it flies out to the side. And then the silhouette, we want it to cover the entire page so that everything becomes entirely black. Here you can adjust the settings so that you know which is the slide you're working on. Here, let's also work on the background image, so we can position that upwards just a little bit and then cover it with the silhouette. Now let's add some new content to the slide. So for that, let's do a dummy text, lorem ipsum dolor, make it white. Avenir next, and we're going to make it bold. Font size, let's try 50, center it in the middle, arrange, align to center to put it in the middle of your slide. Now let's do some text boxes or some menu items here. The rounded rectangle, we're going to make it just that off-white, no outline, and add some text to it. So here I'm just adding some text. It's plain and simple text boxes, so nothing fancy there. And let's copy that one in the center and once more to the right side of the slide. And I'm going to paste in some icons that I got from the icon library. It's the same icon library as before, I just had them still pasted. So group them together, that way we have 3 simple shapes to work with. And this is our next slide. Of course, we have to make sure that the new content also flies in on the previous slide. Drag that downwards. It's nothing too complicated. You just have to make sure that the content is final before you do this. And then let's go for the final step, which is one more duplicate. This content we no longer need because that's from the previous slides. Mountains we no longer need. And this we can drag downwards. The silhouette we can also position downwards to the original beginning. Oh, that's about here. And then the original image we can also pull it down again. So that we have sort of our starter slide. Let's copy these text boxes and make a closing slide. So thanks everyone. Make this just a bit larger so that it fills this gap nicely. There we go. Of course, this is new content, so we have to add it to the previous slide. That's all the way on top, so about here. And now we're going to add the morph transitions to the 3 slides. Transition morph. And this gives us quite a nice opening slide, and as soon as you click, you'll see that the content starts to shift at different paces on the slide. Click once more and it will cover the entire slide in a dark theme with some more content on the slide. Click again and then it will revert back to the original one with your closing message. Using the morph and parallax effect, you can really create stunning presentations. The only thing you have to keep into account is that your content is final. Otherwise, you'll have to change a lot of the text and titles because we copy a lot of the fields. So in today's tutorial, we have seen the 3 levels of parallax, starting with the beginner level where we have a layer, a colored layer moving on top of an image and everything shifting at different speeds. Secondly, we have the effect, a more intermediate effect with more content on the slide and one transparent background that shifts throughout the entire presentation. Already taking it up quite a notch and giving professional presentations. Moving on to the more advanced way of using parallax in PowerPoint, where we work with multiple layers and animations on the slide to give that cool dynamic effect. And you can really go crazy with the parallax, depending of course on the presentation that you want to bring. Thanks a lot for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to learn more about PowerPoint, please watch the video on the screen right now.